So with the introduction of more and more alternative fueled engines, we've started to look at how Pico could be applied to those engines in particular. For example, hydrogen is a big buzzword at the moment in the industry. Methane, this is one methane-powered engine, and obviously we still have LPG out there as well. Now, all of those systems are spark ignition. It's very different from what we've already been looking at with the other off-highway industries, which is predominantly diesel-powered. When it comes to spark ignition, well, there are some additional accessories that we can supply, and one of those is being the secondary ignition coil-on-plug lead, or signal probe. Now, what this does, it looks at for any electrical interference from a higher switched energy source. Now, what that means is that with a coil-on-plug design, which for a spark ignition engine, which is what this has, you can rest the paddle on the top, and it will give you your secondary ignition signal. Now, why is that important? Well, we can now start to actually look at what's going on inside the cylinder by looking at the burn time out of the other side of the spark, and obviously we have the dwell period or coil-on time at the beginning. There's lots of information within that signal that can tell you what's going on inside the cylinder. And the beauty of it all is completely non-intrusive. I say completely non-intrusive, we've already established that access is an absolute nightmare on a lot of off-highway machinery, and this one in particular isn't much fun. The beauty of this, though, is that bearing in mind that this is completely flexible and malleable, we can actually point it in the right direction to get our signal. Now, I've also connected up to the crankshaft signal on this machine as well. It's always nice to have engine speed. It's one of those signals that if I'm ever out doing work or diagnosing problems, I always like to have engine speed. It can give you more information than you think you may need. So, without further ado, what we'll do is we'll get the engine running and get it started. We'll get the scope running as well. We're just going to use our default startup setting, so that plus or minus 50 volts, 500 milliseconds per division. The coil-on-plug probe is BNC+, so it's literally a plug and play. I've set this quite low at plus or minus 500 millivolts. We may need to adjust that depending on how close we are to the coil-on-plug. So let's start the engine. Engine started, as we can see through our crankshaft signal. We're going to take our coil-on-plug probe and we're just going to offer it up against one of the coil packs that we can see. So as expected, it has overranged, but we are getting the signal on the screen. Now I might be able to just leave that resting where it is, come back and make a couple of adjustments to our setup. Go one more, there we go. Right, so from here we can now obviously fine tune our scope settings to get us better detail as to what that signal's doing. So we'll start dropping our signal down. What we're going to use the triggers again. So again, we'll get the auto trigger out. We're going to use channel B because that's going to be our reference point. So channel B, pick up the little diamond, move it into a position where it's going to capture that peak kV signal. Obviously we can't rely on it because that is going to change depending on how close we are to the coil-on-plug pack or any insulation that may be going on inside the pack itself. So time-wise we can rely on, amplitude not so much. So let's continue to drop our signal down, our time base down. And now we can start to see some real detail. So again, we can increase our scaling by pinching and zooming. Then what I can do now is I can now take that coil-on-plug, I can take a reference snapshot of that and then compare it to the next cylinder. So let's do that. So let's add a quick reference waveform of channel B. Now that will sit in the background, just here. Now I'm going to try and move this to another coil pack. I wonder if I can get it just to sit there. Yep, there we go. So now I've got a reference from two different coil packs, and now I could do it for the rest of all 6. So therefore getting an idea of how each of those coil packs is performing. Just going to switch it off. Okay, so you could do, like I said, you could create a reference from each of the other coil packs and then compare them individually. Again, we're not looking for amplitude, we are looking for the time element of this signal. That will eventually then start leading to, you can start seeing, you know, whether or not the cylinder's firing rich or lean, you know, your spark line, you know, how high up is that? How can that be useful? The burn time, the switch on time, it's all useful information that's easily captured by placing this paddle on the top of the coil pack. There's going to be more and more of these engines coming out. I know there will be. The likes of JCB, they've already put their hydrogen engine out there in the market. We've got the methane engine from C&H. Additional accessories like the Coil-on-Plug probe are going to be really, really useful. I hope that helps.